Welcome back to Hear Me Roar. I'm your host, Elizabeth Hernandez, and today will be our very last show, but it'll be a great one. Today we'll be focusing on gender roles, and we'll have some special guests talking about their own personal experiences, so stay tuned.
Claypool Young Art Gallery, located in the center of campus, offers a wide variety of art pieces from various contemporary artists in America. Exhibitions rotate approximately once a month and also hosts art pieces created by Morehead State University students, allowing art majors to experience the learning process of showcasing their art. Claypool Young Art Gallery. Come on over today and be inspired by aspiring MSU artists.
Welcome back. We have a special guest with us, Shelby Price. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I'm a fifth-year student here at Morehead State University. I am a triple major. I have physics, astrophysics, and mathematics that I'm working towards, and I'll have one more year here before I'm done.
Wow, that's exciting. You're almost out.
Almost.
So I heard you went to MIT this summer.
Mm-hmm.
How was that like?
It was amazing. Like I can't really put it into words how great that experience was to me. I learned so much over that summer. It was amazing.
And that was an internship, correct?
Yes.
And so while you were there, did you find any sort of sexism there?
Me personally, I was very lucky. I did not, but I heard from several other of the female interns there that had problems with some of the researchers there. So we actually had a day where one of the female researchers who has been researching ever since she graduated gathered us all together, and we had a conversation about how sexism still exists in the STEM fields and how we should be prepared for it, and we kind of talked about ways to avoid problematic situations. So it kind of made it more real to me to have other people acknowledge, like, this is probably going to happen in your career one day.
And even though you didn't face it when you went for your internship, have you had that occur to you here at MSU?
Not a whole lot. I have heard some jokes that were kind of inappropriate and things like that, but I've never had anything directed straight towards me. So I feel very lucky for that, because I've heard some other girls speak who are in my program, and they haven't been so lucky, and there's been some other male students who've given them problems. So.
And has that ever come about, perhaps like a professor talking about that to the class?
Yeah, there have been some inappropriate jokes made by professors. So it gets a little bit uncomfortable when you're one of one or two girls in a class full of like a male professor and male students. So.
Mm-hmm. And is that kind of a disappropriate ratio between female and male professors at the?
Yeah. They're almost all male in the physics and the astrophysics programs. So.
And do you feel that during class, your male professors are a little more strict or harsh towards the females?
It's hard to say, but sometimes you get an uncomfortable feeling. But for the most part, I feel like our professors are very fair. Mm-hmm. So I don't think that they really consider gender too much when they're looking at a student. They consider their performance and, you know, what they're capable of more than anything. So.
Right. Well, that's really good to hear. We'll be returning back with you talking about gender roles, so stay tuned.
Oh, there they are. Perfect.
Here at Provisions on Demand, we have everything you need right here on campus. We are open anytime you need to stop by. Conveniently located on the lobby floor of Alumni Tower.
Okay, we are back with Shelby. So let's continue on about STEM.
Okay.
What would be an advice you give to another female, perhaps colleagues that you will have going into this field?
Well, it's kind of hard to give specific advice because all these situations are so different, but I guess the biggest thing I can say is try not to let it get to you when somebody makes a joke that makes you uncomfortable. You know, just continue to move forward in your career and be confident in yourself. That's the biggest thing, is confidence, because me personally and a lot of women I know, we struggle with confidence, especially in a field that's very male dominated. So have confidence in yourself and don't get too slowed down when you run into problems. Keep moving forward.
Wow, that's great advice. And was this a topic that you've spoken about to your parents?
Not too much, not really, because again, I've never really had problems myself. I have mentioned, like, when there was an inappropriate joke, we've talked about it, but for the most part, it's just kind of a thing that we don't really notice, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Just this is what I wanted to do, and this is what I'm doing. So my parents are very supportive.
And how was it? Did you think about this before going into this field?
Honestly, I didn't really, because this was just kind of what I wanted to do. And then when I got here, I did kind of realize, you know, the further along I got into the program, the fewer and fewer female students were there. And it was something that just felt strange, because it's pretty evenly split in most all classes, except for the ones that I'm going towards for my degree. So it's a unique experience, I guess.
Right. And do you think, well, since you haven't experienced this, do you think that you're maybe perhaps kind of ready for when that happens?
I don't really believe I'll ever be ready, but I feel better prepared now that I've been able to meet other women who have been through it before and hear, you know, how they dealt with the situation, and they gave me advice. And so I don't feel like it's something that's going to stop me from moving forward, but it's not really something I think you can completely prepare for.
Oh, wow. Well, thank you very much. Thank you for being on the show and talking about this.
You're welcome.
We'll be going onto a video segment, so stay tuned.
I'm Dr. Bernadette Barton. I'm a professor of sociology and gender studies at Morehead State University. I'm also author of Stripped: Inside the Lives of Exotic Dancers, Pray the Gay Way: The Extraordinary Lives of Bible Belt Gays, and I have a new edition of Stripped coming out called More Stories from Exotic Dancers. I've also been a professor of sociology and gender studies here for 18 years, and I'm also the faculty advisor for SAGE, Student Association for Gender Equality. So gender roles are external to the individual. Sex and gender, sex is our biological sex, our chromosomes, our hormones, our genitalia. Gender is the social construction of femininity and masculinity. Gender roles are what society assigns us based on whether they perceive us as masculine or feminine. Now some people line up with the gender role that society says they should be. Some people do not. So gender roles can be very confining if you're not in alignment with what society wants. Coming up with a specific incident is more difficult than talking about the sort of systematic track of experience. So as a feminine woman, my entire life, I've struggled to be perceived of as powerful and have authority, especially in places like the classroom, in ways that men are just sort of automatically assumed to know their subject matter. I've had to fight harder to be perceived of as valid. I would also like to talk a moment about the impact of the recent election and how that is affecting us as gendered people. So we just elected an openly bigoted, sexist person to the highest office, and we did not elect the most qualified woman to ever run. So that says a lot to me about the way our society sees women and women's characteristics and women's ability to lead. Patriarchy overvalues everything associated with men and masculinity and undervalues everything associated with women and femininity. The rules for masculinity in our society are even more narrow than the rules for femininity. Women are allowed to express a tomboy self as a child, and even encouraged to be like a guy as they get older. In fact, a lot of girls brag about how they like hanging out with the guys and are happy to be included among the guys. But what's missing there is the devaluation of everything to do with women. Like, why isn't it okay to be like a girl? So masculinity also, the way it is in our late capitalist society, you're supposed to be tough, you're supposed to be sexually aggressive, you're supposed to be entitled to women's bodies, you're supposed to be violent, you're not supposed to be very intelligent, and you're not supposed to be very kind. I think it's a very disturbing and toxic combination. And we can see the consequences of it in the person that we just elected to be leader of the free world.
Welcome back to the show. Right here we have Sarah Jackson. Can you introduce yourself to our viewers?
Yes, my name is Sarah Jackson. I am a senior here at Morehead State University. That's about it.
And you're studying art, correct?
Mhm.
And how is that? How did you get started?
Getting started in art, freshman year of high school, my art teacher was like, oh, maybe you should do this, at least try it. And I was just like, oh, I don't really like it, but I guess I'll try it. And then I ended up being really good at it.
Okay, so what does your art focus on? What is some of the themes you do?
Themes would probably either be landscape or I will use a female figure. And basically, it's either I'm expressing emotions, and so embracing women, empowering, and also like let your feelings out. Like let it be something. If you're going through a sad time, let it build you back up. If you're going through a really happy time, keep moving forward.
And why do you choose to do this? What made you say, I want to focus on this into my artwork?
I've been around empowering women all my life. Like my mother was a single parent. A lot of my family members, like they're single parents. So I feel like I should embrace what I've had. I've come up, brought up to be, and they're just really strong, and that's how I want to portray myself.
Oh wow, that's great. So what are some lessons you've learned from your mom that have perhaps developed into your art?
Keep your head up. Man, that's a really tricky question. But maybe just move forward with life. Go for anything and everything that you want. Don't let nothing hold you back. And that's why I like to experiment. I like to take my chances of experimenting with watercolor, and instead of just using a paintbrush, I can use a palette knife and just about anything. So I like to embrace myself and use an abstraction form with everything.
So do you use gender roles into your artwork?
More so, yeah. Like I said, I just mainly use women. I've never really experienced like drawing men or anything. Just never.
And what is a big, perhaps a art or painting that you've done that really means something to you?
I have did a painting where my mother passed away in 2010. So I have this picture I took of my aunt who took me in, looking at my mother's tombstone. And as for the viewer, I made it into a painting. So as me as a viewer, I'm seeing it as my aunt looking over to my mother saying, I got her. It's my mother looking down on both of us saying, I know I made the right choice. And it's me looking at my aunt and my mother like, these are my influences. This is what I'm working for.
That's very powerful.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And we'll be returning right back after a little break. We are back with Sarah. talking about artwork and gender roles. So you spoke about your mother. So what advice would you give to other female artists going into this?
Go in full force. Don't be afraid to take chances. Enter in as many art shows as you can. Don't be afraid to express every bit of emotion that you have, because that's what's going to build you up. That's what's making you unique as an artist.
And what do you see yourself doing after, of course, art, but what do you see yourself after college?
Oh, crazy. I've been talking about paintings, but I actually love the experience of working with logos and designs and branding. So I've had the chance to work at a winery and do labels for them. So
Nice.
I actually want to expand on that and see where that could take me.
And would you also be leaning towards kind of feminism and that sort when you go into that?
Well, mostly for the winery, I have been like, you want like 1950s pinup women. So, I mean, I have been working with that. I would like to stick with that. That's really nice.
And how was that experience of you getting into that and starting with the winery?
Oh, actually, they was looking for me. It's in my hometown, and then I ended up just wanting a job as a waitress. But they was just like, hey, can you do this? And then as like a female artist, I mean, they did want like a lot of exposure, and I was just like, oh, well, I haven't really exposed that much in my drawing yet. So, I mean, that was a different perspective, but I learned to live with it. It sells really good, so.
Oh, wow. So what have you learned from that experience? Do you think perhaps maybe they got more sales because of the art? I know a lot of people, when you do maybe posters or, advertising a certain way, I mean, the sales go up.
I honestly do. They had like old, really, really old one, and people started noticing how new it was, and they was just like, I have never seen this one before. And then that's when they was like, oh, well, our artist is right over here. And then I think it did boost up the sales, so I like to give my props to myself.
That's really good. So are you going to continue with the winery?
For right now, I am. At least until I could move and find myself another job, I'll stick with that as doing really good, paying and building up a portfolio.
Okay, wow. So do you see yourself moving away from home?
Oh yeah, I'm like 20 minutes away in Flemingsburg, so I want to like move to Cincinnati. It's one of the top 25 places to get a graphic design job, so start there. If I can move further, it would be help too. But.
Oh, nice. So what have you learned here at MSU with gender roles or your artwork? What are some things you've learned here?
The women in the art department are powerful. So I've learned that they are smart, they're intelligent, that you will not let none of them see them down, because they will build you right back up. And just as an artist, I've came across so many wonderful teachers. They have really just lifted me up and branched out. Like, I have to give praise to them.
Well, thank you so much. I really enjoyed hearing your experiences. Thank you so much for being on the show. We will be going into our field reporter, Silva Milantoni, with this video.
Hello, so this is Sylvia. Today I'm here with Jan Christensen, and she's a producer for CNN, and I'm gonna be interviewing her, so let's get to it. Can you tell me a little bit about yourself and your job?
I'm a producer for CNN, and a lot of people, including my mother, don't know what a producer is. I'll explain that.
Yeah.
Usually when people think of journalists, they hear about reporters, and that's a lot of what producers get to do. So we, at the network level, have producers who spend a lot of time in the field working on breaking news, working with live shots, all that stuff that you know about. Yeah. For me, because my correspondent right now is also a full-time brain surgeon,
Wow.
he has a lot of other things that he has to do. So we get a chance to do a lot of the things that you would think of a reporter doing. So we get to do research, we get to do interviews, we get to set up shots, we get to edit, we get to do all of that. And then we get Dr. Gupta for a 15% of the field work. So he'll come and do the big interview with the celebrity or the
Oh, wow.
president or something like that.
Wow. Can you tell me a little bit about how you got your job? What was your plan before, like your major in school?
So I went to Butler University in Indianapolis, and I was on a scholarship for theater. It was a really good major to teach me about writing for the ear and talking to an audience, and to think about, presentation beyond, just traditional radio, TV.
Yeah.
And I also had we used to call it radio, TV, was my other major.
Oh, wow.
And then political science. So I had the production skills, I had the presentation skills, and then I had something to talk about,
Yeah.
when we were on the air. So I did that at school, and then I got an internship. I did lots and lots of hours as an intern there. And then when I was finished with the internship, I was doing a documentary about women in broadcasting, because there were no women in broadcasting at a high level at that time in Indianapolis where I worked. So I was talking to this woman who was an associate producer and asking her questions about her job and things. And then she said, well, what is it that you want to do? And I said, well, I'd like to do your job.
Yeah.
So I really lucked out, and I think it was because I spoke up, which I normally never would have done. But she saw me working during the year, and so she went to the news director, and the news director said, when you're done with your internship, would you like to stay on? We really need somebody to help edit. We had tape back in the day. So that was my first job, so I got to work in Indianapolis.
How do you feel about gender disequality, and do you see that in your job or in your life?
Absolutely. I mean, I think women still have so many challenges in society that, spends a lot of time telling women that we're not as good as everyone else, or, anyone who is an other, whether that be somebody because of being a racial minority, or they didn't grow up with wealth, or they didn't grow up in an environment that was supportive of women, I think always seems to have a challenge. So there's a bit of that, and I'm gay, so we have some of those challenges as well. Luckily, I work in a workplace that's welcoming and friendly to LGBT people. I'm very fortunate, but I run an association that's the NLGJA. It's the Association for LGBTQ Journalists.
Oh, wow.
And it's
really
great.
Cool.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, but it's a lot of hard work, because we hear all the time about people and the struggles that they have at work. So we try really hard to help.
Definitely, I'm sure you
Help
do.
make their lives a little bit better if we can.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, do you have any tips or advices for young women that are struggling in their work experience, or I don't know, maybe in school or in the future, something like that?
Sure. I guess my mentor was a high-powered exec at my company, and she always gave me advice to just try to be as authentic as possible, to be yourself and to know who you are. And that's always challenging, because society tells us who we are, and it doesn't always match up. But at least if you have that base, then when you go into meetings or when you have to deal with an uncomfortable situation, then hopefully you'll be able to have the fortitude to be able to speak up.
Our show has come to an end, and I've had a great pleasure of being your host. And thank you for an amazing season, and stay tuned this next semester. We'll be leaving the show with a drag segment hosted by the Spectrum organization here at Morehead State, so enjoy.
Mine is a drag show. We have hosted this drag show for the past few years. I'm not sure on the number, but students and professional performers from Lexington are coming to perform. All of the students are competing for the title of Lipstick Queen, Drag Queen, and Drag King. There's 9 performers in total, and I'm super excited about it. My drag name is Mary Lee Queer. This is her debut performance. I've never performed as her before. I have gone through the process of creating an entire character for myself. The concept of drag, the best I can explain it is gender performance. Men can dress up as women for a night, and women can dress up as men for a night, and even women can put on an exaggerated form of femininity, and males can put on an exaggerated form of masculinity. It's all about exaggeration of gender, and I am absolutely incredibly excited because we have 2 trans boys here doing Drag Queen, so it's really exciting to have actual trans people doing Drag Queen and stuff. And for me, as a trans man portraying a woman right now, gender roles are completely and absolutely just out of the window.
My name is Oliver Palmer, but my drag name is Peachy Queen. Peachy Queen is really bubblegum pop, but also very glitter like Kesha. I described it as Ariel's long lost sister who had a little bit more interest in the human world than Ariel actually did. I've never done drag. This is actually my very first time really even performing on a stage. It's a really nice way to be able to dress up and just mess around in a way that's really fun for everybody.
But the show doesn't benefit us, it doesn't benefit just me or performers standing up here. Our money goes to our philanthropy, which is AVOL, which Tim is on the board of directors of. AVOL is the AIDS Volunteers of Lexington. They do free HIV testing. They do so much stuff, and our money goes for that. It goes for their resources, and it goes for everything that they can use.